Hey there, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about defense in OOTP 23 because it is very, very, very different. They have completely reworked how the system functions in terms of the productivity of players by position, and I'm still in shock from how incredibly insane defense is going to be in this cycle unless they make major changes before release, which I don't think is going to be the case. I think this is what we're looking at for defense this year, and it completely shakes up the meta of how we view defense in the past. Well, maybe not completely, but defense is much different now. So the first thing I want to start out with is catcher ability. This is the number one thing I said I would explore when I got the game. It's been explored, and I am incredibly displeased to report that catcher ability is maybe a third as useful as it was in OOTP 22. So yeah, guys, Austin Hedges, no longer best catcher in the game. It's going to be JT Realmuto this year. I'm going to let you all know right now. It's JT Realmuto, officially the best catcher in OTP. I mean, he's got the catcher ability as well, but he's also got the arm and he's got the hitting, and the hitting is going to be the big thing, guys. Catcher, for the first time in out of the park history, is a bat first position. Yeah, I said it. I'm picking up hitters to catch for me this year. I've been spending the past 2 years fighting with people who tried to make this point to me, but now OTP has revamped the engine, and catcher ability is no longer the most overpowered thing in the game. You need to get offensive catcher for reasons I'm going to get into shortly. Now, the next thing is shortstop, the number 2 thing on my must explore list. Shortstop is even more overpowered than last year. Shortstop range is 20% better than it was last year. Now, last year, shortstop range was the second most important singular defensive rating behind catcher ability. This year, shortstop range would kick catcher abilities butt last year. It's just insane. It's a must-have rating. You have got to have the top tier shortstop range. I mean, it's last year I would have taken a no hit guy for a great fielding shortstop. This year, you have to have that defense at shortstop. There's just no way around it. You got to have a great fielder. It's just so important to your ability to be successful. Shortstop defense, insane this year. It's going to be, actually, I can't say that. It's not going to be a distant number one. I haven't tested out shortstop arm error return no plays yet. They're probably improved as well, but shortstop going to be crazy. Now, next thing, center field defense. And guys, center field has somehow caught up to shortstop for me. In a year where shortstop became insanely busted, center field took it to a whole new level. Center field is 50% better. Center field range says 50% better than it was last year. So what we're looking at now is absolute necessity to have ridiculously quality fielders at shortstop and center field. So up the middle, catcher is no longer the big deal. It's shortstop and center field, and you have got to have the insane fielders at these positions or you will not win games. Or at least you will not be anywhere near maximizing your ability to win games. At this point, now last year, like an average fielder at these positions with an insane bat is probably still a well above average player this year. No, you've got to be a well above average fielder. You've got to be actually one of the best in the league to be really a top tier player at this point. Offense at these positions, just by pure comparison to the defensive value, just completely falling off the board of my evaluation. I'm just almost exclusively going to be evaluating players by their defense. Now, I still recommend exclusively doing it, but guys like Christian Pache, guys like Harrison Bader, must-haves in OTP 23. You've got to have those elite center fielders. Now, the other positions I've tested, second base. Now, ironically, second base is actually almost identical in value to what it was last year. So you're not going to be too heavily increasing the defensive importance. Now, obviously, second base is still quite important position defensively, but what you're looking at is instead of a massive, massive boost to how important it is, you're still going to be looking for offense at the position. Now that shortstop and center field are crazy valuable defensively, you got to be making up your hitting, and it's got to be at second base. You've got to put more value on getting some kind of offensive production at second base. So guys who maybe not the best fielders in the world, but pretty good bats, guys like David Fletcher, guys like Nicky Lopez, they're vaulting up the importance at the position for me overall. Guys like Luis Guillorme, who are pretty fringe bats, but really great fielders, they're starting to fall down the pit for me. They're not going to be as good this year because you got to have that hitting at second base, at least to some degree, for me at this point, to be a really good fielder. Now, third base, the other big position I want to talk about, way better. Third base range has been boosted to a point where it's almost as good as second base range. And that's range. That's the most important rating at second base by a mile. But range isn't even the most important rating at third base. Arm is twice as good as it was last year, guys. Twice as good. How is it even possible? I do want to mention that it's possible my ratings or my numbers for third base are slightly inflated due to the way I have my league set up. But I'm saying arm is at least 50% better this year at third base. From last year, where it was like the fourth or fifth most important defensive rating, arm is going to be up there with like center field range for this cycle. It's just so big this year. I'm going to be needing a cannon for every third baseman I have. Guys like Arenado, guys like Matt Chapman, guys like Andrelton Simmons at third base, which I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's a thing now, guys. Andrelton Simmons at third base because third base defense is so big. It's got to happen. You've got to have an elite fielder at third base now. Third base is more important defensively than second base, unless Tardell plays is just like through the roof of value, which I'm doubting. I'll test it, obviously. We'll get the numbers, but for now, third base, I'm confident it is going to be a far more important position defensively. So, where does that put the rest of the field in terms of where you're getting your offense and defense from? Now, you've got to have a great fielder at third base, shortstop, center field. Those are heavily glove first positions now. So, second base, you got to get some offensive production. Obviously, defense is still quite important, but you got to have something in there. So let's say we got three holes in our lineup. We're getting some offensive production from second base, some offensive production from catcher, more in the second base, with some defense still there because obviously I'm not throwing catcher ability out the window. I need my pitching to still overperform their projections. So where are we getting the rest of our offense? First base. I haven't tested it yet, but I'm going to be so upset if first base is a gold mine for defensive value this year. If first base is high value defensively, I'm messing with modifiers. I'm not accepting it. It's got to be first base for an offensive position. Left field, I haven't tested it yet. One big thing I'm interested in is, does left field defense still break if you go below average on any scale? If it does, then obviously you still gotta have that minimum. But I'm betting left field this year is still a position where gotta have an offensive player, get some defense out of him, but it's gotta be a hitter. And right field, the last position, a little more than second base. I'm wanting offense, but I'm guessing with the defensive boost, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be coming for right field. You're gonna need someone who can field. So a guy like Alex Verdugo with good range, good arm, good hitting. That's your ideal right fielder this year. A guy like Mookie Betts, who's an outstanding hitter with pretty good defense, or a gold glove defense even. That's going to be a guy you'll want to have in right field. It's going to be those types of players that are really rising to the top, even more so than last year, just because the reweighting of defense, absolutely ridiculous. So as for early returns, and it's still beta, defensive values have already been slightly reweighted once, could get slightly reweighted again. What we're looking at in terms of the best defensive rate positions, I'm going to rank them. Shortstop number one by a mile, or not by a mile. Center field is actually pretty close behind it, but shortstop and center field this year are absolutely must-have gloves. You can't skimp out on those positions at all. I'm not kidding when I'm saying it's probably like a 6-7 win position defensively now. It's crazy the types of value you can get out of good fielders. Yeah, and also another thing I want to mention before I forget it, center field the baseline last year was really high to be a competent center fielder. You basically had to be like a six. You had to be at least a 60 range fielder at center field before you started seeing any kind of return on your defense. This year it's even higher. It's probably like a high 65. You've got to really get up there in the center field point before you start hitting past the bateless line. But once you do the returns, even more ridiculous than they have been in the past. Center field just going to be hugely important defensively to have that high range player there. You just really can't afford to go for a low range center fielder this year. It's going to be so key. Third base is going to be my number 3. Um, the increased value of range and arm, just enormous. They also have said that they put an increased value on error. Third base error is the most important of any infield position, actually any position, period. So if that holds true and third base error is like twice as important, third base is actually going to be almost as good as like center field, which is crazy to say. But this position incredibly important defensively. Next up, I'm actually going to be going, and it's crazy I haven't even ranked catcher yet. I'm going for right field. I'm going to guess that right field this year is going to be even more important than catcher and second base. I haven't tested it at all yet, so take this with some grain of salt, but right field, if it's anything like the boost center field guy, it's going to be crazy how important it's going to be defensively. Obviously, still not huge, but you're going to have to balance it out a little bit more. It's going to be around or a little past what we saw for second base's defensive value. All right, next I'm going to be putting second base, and my gosh, I still haven't ranked catcher. Oh my gosh. What have they done? Catcher ability is so bad this year. Oh my gosh. Yeah, second base. It's going to be slightly passed up by right field, but still pretty high up there on the value of defensive positions. It's number 5. It's number 5. It's still important, but it's not huge this year. Second base or right field, you're going to need to get some offense out of those positions. Just keep the defense respectable still. That's the big thing. And number 6 is catcher. Wow, it's crazy to even. Last year I would have even conceived this to be possible that catcher could be ranked this low. But yeah, number 6 is going to be catcher for me. Literally only the completely valueless positions defensively are outranking catcher still. Now, one thing I will say is if turn double plays at error at second base are not bumped significantly, I do expect them to be bumped, then I would say catcher is still better than second base. If right field has not received any kind of range boost like center field has, or arm boost, which is also another possibility that outfield arm is more important this year, then I would say catcher is still better than right field. But right now, based on what I have seen from the defensive spectrum, catcher is the number 6 defensive position by importance. You've got to get your offense at catcher now, which is just crazy. Number 7 is left field. Obviously, still got to hit that minimum benchmark. Well, I don't know if you do. That's something I'm going to test, but I'm guessing that benchmark still exists where if you go below the average, it's just absolute butcher defensively. But if it's possible that left field got a massive boost to how important range is, and it could compete with catcher for that number 7 slot. Whew. Or no, that is the number 7 slot. Yeah. No, catchers at the number 6 slot. I can't count. But it's still crazy to think that it's that far. Yeah, no. That is the number 7 slot because pitcher. Wow, it's crazy. No, that's the number 6. I really can't count. Behind that, obviously in the 8th spot, we got first base. I honestly would expect first base to be more important this year. I'd say rather than being like half a run between an elite first baseman and, it's more like a quarter of a win between an elite first baseman and an average first baseman. Maybe it's more like a third of a win, but it's still not very significant. You're obviously still going for your hitting from that position. If it's possible that they completely change first base and it's now like an actually very important defensive position, maybe even more important than catcher, but I'm gonna guess that's not the case. I'm still looking for my bats at first base for the time being. And lastly, pitcher. pitcher's never going to be all that important defensively, especially since they're not out there every day. You're just looking for a guy who can pitch. Defense, I will probably actually work it into my pitcher value regressions when they come out later this year, but it's not how you're primarily evaluating a pitcher. Yeah, this year's just absolutely crazy defensively. I'm still processing it. I hope this gets out to you guys and that you are prepared for the absolute storm that's hit us in OTP 23. I'll get back to you with some more information on the game. I'm going to be releasing a video in the very near future reviewing the game itself and all the new features. But I thought that the defensive shakeup this year was so important that it actually needed to be the first OTP 23 video to come out. It has got to be because it's just absolutely revolutionary in the way we play the game. Anyways, you guys, thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you on my next video about this game as a whole. I hope this was enjoyable and informational to you, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one.